On this episode of the iPhoneography podcast, it isn't Festivus, but we have airing of grievances when it comes to rants about various parts of iPhone reviewers, about apps that went subscription on us, how people don't understand what's really going on. But don't worry, we still have our photos of the week to bring us back to Central.
It's Monday, September 26th, and welcome to the iPhoneography podcast. I'm Greg McMillan, and I'm joined by my wonderful esteemed co-host, Mr. Dave Podner. Hello, Dave.
Oh, hey, hello, Greg. Oh, making me feel all special and such.
Oh, yeah, well, you
are. Just plain yogurt.
Yeah. So we got I think I have a feeling this show is going to be full of a rant tonight. Mm-hmm. We're going to talk about a few different things here. Let's start with your rant. And you have a rant about Polarr. That's your favorite editing app.
It is. It was my go-to, my fallback. The first thing I went to whenever I wanted to do something. And I just this past week opened it up. Now, I shall say this. I love the dehaze and the clarity settings.
Yeah.
Very similar to what Adobe has in Lightroom, where dehaze does what it does. It's basically, I think it has like 4 or 5 things kind of as a combo where it literally looks like you're just taking the haze off and making a clearer, sharper, more crisper, higher contrast image. Mm-hmm. And I noticed, I opened up Polarr and there was a blue dot over the edit feature. So I went there and a blue dot over the detail. I'm like, okay, I have a bad feeling about this. And I did the adjustment. I hit the little checkbox that said, oh, if you want the advanced features, please subscribe.
Really?
Yeah. So, yeah, and I don't remember seeing, of course, they wouldn't give I didn't remember seeing anywhere that was, hey, we're making some exciting changes coming up. I don't know what that is, but so there's a Polarr Lite and a Polarr Studio as the 2 premium. So the Lite has access premium filters and save unlimited filters. That's $199 a month. Or the Studio, which also gives you advanced editing tools. So that's what I would use. I would use the editing tools. That's $399 a month. So that's if you do it, and they don't have a buy a year and get savings. They have only the per month ones. So that's $4 a month. That's almost $50 a year. And I have no problem because they did have a subscription before. And they said, here's your free stuff, here's the paid stuff. Mm-hmm. And I was like, okay, well, the paid stuff would be nice, so you do the extra layers but you know what? I'm happy with the free, But they, instead of saying, hey, by the way, we have these new tiers and we're going to give you all this wonderful extra stuff, but we're keeping what you got if you were free. This is no, it's okay. We're taking away some stuff you got for free and making you pay for stuff now. So. Really? I've just because, like I said, literally the very first things I go to a photo is I hit the dehaze, I hit the clarity. I like how it does night, and then I make the light and the color adjustments for most of the time. So it's like, okay, I like Polarr because it was an extension inside of Photos. You didn't have to open up and save a copy. It was right there. Plus, they have a nice face feature. I don't know. I didn't even look at that. Where you take a picture of your face. Let's say you want to smooth your skin a little bit, or the light made you look a little red, or your coloration was off in your face. You can make adjustments to your face in terms of the smoothness, in terms of this, in terms of coloration. Make minor tweaks, if you will. Nothing you could do. You could do major. Like change your eye shape or your size, your mouth shape, or frown or smile. But we used it pretty much as like, oh, just smooth out a little bit, do this. So it's like, okay, I guess I won't be using that. So I've started to today for the photos I selected, because I two photos from my 3-pack later on today. I took today. So I edited them in Lightroom Mobile because they have a good amount of free features, which I understand. Everyone who's paying for Lightroom and Adobe, thank you. You're subsidizing my cheapness by subscribing, but they have some stuff for free if you just create an account, which is at no cost. So I've started to use that, and I like it. I like their auto better than Polarr. Like Adobe's auto seems to work pretty good. But it's the fact that this is the second editing program that has made substantial changes. The first one was Enlight, when they went completely from a paid model to a subscription to change the app completely, where before it was a photo editing, now it's a creative creation tool app, where they even came out with a whole nother app and they renamed the company. So I stopped using that. Matt Hoffman, when we were on Tiny Shutter, he mentioned Polarr. That's why I started to pick on that and use it. And now it's going to Adobe Lightroom. And if that goes away, or if they make changes, even I don't see them doing it, but if they make changes, I'll go to the next one, I guess.
I've just been looking at Polarr while you've been talking about it, and I was grandfathered in to everything because I paid for
you actually purchased
whatever
it
it was.
Past,
and I couldn't find, like, I was looking at some of the settings and that they had these little purple little icons on there, meaning in order to use them you had to upgrade. But I finally found where I can restore my purchases, and now I'm good again. I've got everything back. So all the overlays and all that stuff. I think the masking tools, the effects, all that stuff. Yeah, it's all back now. So if you had everything before, then you'll get everything again. And you might have to just go in and find out how to restore the purchases. But Visco did the same thing. They had a lot of really good features that were included in the free version. All of a sudden they switched them to subscription. It was either earlier this year or sometime last year. And I get it. I get why these companies are doing this, because they got to have a revenue stream, because they got to buy their shoes and keep the lights on and stuff. But it's kind of maddening when you're so used to something, and then now you have to figure out how to learn a whole new program.
Yeah, I mean, I imagine, and even though, I mean, Snapseed's always there as a backup, but there are certain things that I like doing, certain things which Snapseed just doesn't do, like the individual color adjustments.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, that blue doesn't look quite right, but I don't want to mess up the rest of the color. I can go into, this was the same with Polarr, and this is one of the advanced features, the individual color adjustments, where you're like, let's make this color here, change a 10 of this blue or this green, and let's change how bright it is or change how light or dark it is. That's all gone. Or at least it's gone for the free version. If you want it, you got to pay for it, $4 a month.
Now, Darkroom has a feature like that. I don't know. Like I've got, for Darkroom, I've got most of the stuff because of what I paid for before, but there are some things that, since they went to a subscription, I don't have. I don't think it's really too much that I wouldn't use anyway, but it does have that nice feature where if you want to just adjust certain colors. And the nice thing about Darkroom is it shows you, I think there's 6 or 7 or 8 different color palettes or whatever, and it'll show you with a kind of a sort of histogramish kind of thing which colors are being used and how much they're being used.
Oh, okay.
So if you have like a picture of a sunset,
Mm-hmm.
the orange might have might spike up in the graph a little bit, so you could say, okay, there's a lot of orange in that type of thing. So it's good that way. And I would miss that if I didn't have access to it. So if that's something that you're missing now in Polarr, I can feel your pain there.
Yeah. Yeah. So luckily, like I said, I'm switching over to Lightroom Mobile. The one thing I don't like about it is when you do edits and save the photo, it saves it as a new photo.
Oh yeah.
So I'm basically I'm going to have duplicate photos where I have to delete the original unless I want to double my storage space.
Right. Yeah.
Which I don't like.
Yeah.
But I know that's how it's I don't know. Like I said, I understand they got to make money and they got to do what they need to do, but it's just a little irritating when, like I said, if they would say, this is what we offered you, we're going to offer new things for this money, but to take away things they used to offer, that just
I kind of don't agree with that because they're just messing up your jive, man.
yeah
It's it's annoying, and unfortunately there's more and more developers doing that with their apps.
Oh yeah.
And,
well, like I said, I understand why, because you got to make money and no one's buying apps anymore, or no one likes to buy a $3, $5 app. So everyone had to go subscription, which I understand,
Yeah.
But like I said, it's more of the matter of the taking away so much.
Mm-hmm.
It was.
And the apps like this, there's such a saturated market, where people have their preferences and that's the one they stay with, and they're not buying other apps. And these developers, they just got to find a way to survive. So,
yeah.
Well,
and I'll say, well, let me tie this into one of your rants from later on. If you're a pro photographer, and I mean pro as, and this is something we talked about, not the Apple way of saying pro as in I'm a pro user because I use advanced features, but pro as in professional, I
make a living.
Like I use my camera here as an influencer or to take photos. And like I said, I know people who do make their living off of, putting stuff on Instagram, and they need the camera. And if you're doing that, then $4 a month, that's a business expense.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
So that makes sense. But if you're talking about the advanced amateurs, or advanced users who like to tinker and do the little extra, I'm sorry, I'm not going to pay $4 a month for something I'm not going to make any money off of.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right.
If I'm doing it just for funsies, that's cutting into other things. So yeah.
Yeah. And these phones are so bloody expensive to buy, right? I mean, it takes 2 years to pay one off, for Pete's sake. Now, for me, I kind of did my paying in advance. I kept throwing money into a bank account so that when this one came due, bang, okay, I had the money. Yeah. But I mean, I was paying that money every month, basically to put it away in order to get it, just because I didn't want to get it from the carrier or whatever. But I mean, I feel your pain when it comes to losing some features in your favorite app like that. It's a tough pill to swallow sometimes. And especially when we understand why they're doing it. I mean, it just makes you want to pull your hair out. So my rant has to do with what these YouTubers and people are saying about the iPhone 14 Pro camera system. One of the things that set me off was there's a YouTuber named Tony Northrup, and I probably shouldn't even say his name, but I'm going to anyway because I'm going to call him out on this. And I called him out in a comment on the video that he put out where he was saying that the 48 megapixel sensor, I mean, in his mind, he thinks the thing is binned all the time. I don't think he realizes that you can get a full 48 megapixel image from that camera. And because in his video, he said, when you go to the 2X, which takes a chunk of 12 megapixels out of the center of the sensor, he thinks it's binned, so you only get into 3 megapixel picture. Like, come on. This guy should know better than that. And, he said in his video he was going to do some testing and blah, blah, blah. And I've yet to see another video where he's done this testing. I didn't get a response from him from the comment I made, because the comment I made, I put on there before he even got my phone. And I told him what I thought that the 48 megapixel sensor was going to be like. And, I basically said, I'll be testing it when I get my phone. And if I'm wrong, I'll bet my lunch on it. Mm-hmm. And I'm not trying to talk myself up, but I was right in what I said about how it works. So, there's him, and there's another pro photographer. I probably shouldn't be mentioning names, but there's another pro photographer, very well known, who was going on about how he doesn't think it's all that great. He was going on about Vero, about how Vero's not going to be it's not going to survive and all this stuff. This is kind of on a bit of a tangent here, but he was talking about how Vero is not going to be a good place for photographers to be. He pointed to another pro photographer's video where this guy rants about Vero and how you're not going to be able to, establish your business there as a photographer. Well, okay, so what? Most people aren't pro photographers looking to move from the stupid metaverse crap over to a more user-friendly place like Vero. And because I've been on Vero for probably going on 5 years now, and I'm really enjoying the experience more so now than I did, especially with this latest exodus from Instagram. Mm-hmm. And it's a nice place to share pictures because it's a nice experience to look at pictures. But it's also a great place to do your social networking. It's all about what do they call it? Vero. True social is what they tag it as. So you can share links. You can share, like I share links to our podcast. Mm-hmm. Blog.
It's posts. More than just photography.
Sure, it is. But I mean, my ultimate true photographic photo sharing experience is on glass. I just think it's the best experience for sharing pictures. But Vero is good for networking and it's more of an Instagram replacement. Well, I mean, I think glass is the best replacement, but Vero is a darn good one. Vero and glass work together like Facebook and Instagram, in my opinion, but without all the bull crap that goes with them. Mm-hmm. So I mean that's another tangent of a rant. I mean, another thing that ticks me off about these, high-end pro photographers who only recently started going on about the iPhone. When it really started, I don't know, but I mean, I've noticed it more with the 12 and the 13 Pros and all that stuff, and especially now again with the 14 Pros. And I just don't think they're getting it. They think that, the one I listened to today was pissed off because he didn't have a 10 times zoom or whatever, like a 10 times optical zoom. Well, okay, sorry, pal. Apple's not going to cater to the high-end, high-paid professional photographers. I mean, how many times, Dave, do we got to say the 90-90 rule, right?
Yeah.
Pleasing 90% of the people, 90% of the time. And, Apple, I mean, they've probably got 2 or 3 iterations of the iPhone on tables in Apple Park working on them right now. Who knows what they'll have? People complain, USB-C. Well, Lottie freaking da. Apple's going to do what Apple's going to do. They're not going to do something just because people are crying the blues about it. I mean, they took the headphone jack out, and they said it was a move of courage. They haven't looked back, and they're not going to look back.
But I'll say this: I would not call that a move of courage. That now, if they want, because you didn't gain anything by losing the headphone jack. You really didn't. Now, I'll say this: was it a business? Now, if they want to say, we think that this is the design going forward, and you're right, Apple never looks back. And we found out that a lot of Android phones also got rid of their headphone jack once they found Apple got rid of it.
Yeah.
And I really think next year they are going to switch to USB-C.
Well, I wouldn't be surprised.
Because the high end iPads are, their iPads are switching over. So, just simplifying that way. And yes, I personally, if I was going to gripe at Apple, yes, the Lightning port's a minor thing for me, but I've had iPhones for how long now? If you're coming into the iPhone, the fact they don't have the brick with it, that to me rubs me the wrong way. You should have the brick. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
You should have an option for a brick or something like that,
And you mean the charging brick?
The charging brick, yeah. Because it's like, that's great but I know most people are not switchers or they're not new. They're already Apple users. It's a business decision. They make the boxes smaller. They can fit more boxes in there. They can do less shipment. They can save millions of dollars. Great. It's a wonderful thing. And it may help in the environment in a way, not 100%, because if you still need a brick, you got to buy it from somewhere.
Yeah, that's right.
It's just saving Apple. But one thing and I think a lot of professional photographers and other people don't get, and this is because they are not familiar with logistics and engineering. If Apple wants to switch to USB-C, like you said, right now the iPhone 15, I guarantee you, is on its way for final design. It's 11 months away, but it's 90% of the way to final design. The iPhone 16 is halfway to final design, probably, because of the engineering and the case and everything else, and the hardware and the software and the chipsets that have to work together. They have to plan 2 or 3. And then, of course, this is a problem with Apple. Apple is not a small, nimble company. It is the 800-pound gorilla. Not only that, they're not going to put out, like Samsung, here's a phone that's only going to sell 200,000 units in a year, like a flip phone. So we only need, and flip phones may be the future, but for Samsung, for its flip phone, when it first rolled out, they only needed 50,000 parts for a particular phone. Apple needs hundreds of millions of parts. So I really think that Apple next year is going to have that telescoping lens that gives you 10x optical zoom, because they are starting to run into issues where they will be too far behind. But to do that, you have to redesign the interior, which means you have to talk to your chip people to have everything kind of work together. And you have to work with your supplier for the lenses to say, hey, we need 100 million of these lenses. How long they may say, for that many, it's going to take us 2 years to build up the ability to do that in the volume and the quality that you want it, versus player A, B, or C.
Yeah.
In that case, Apple's like, okay, in that case, we're going to look at, okay, this has to come out with the phone that's going to come out in 2023 because of supply chain, because of requirements, because of design and engineering, and everyone does this. This is just engineering. It goes from cars, computers. So people are like, why can't you just change a car? Because the car they're going to get ready to build 2 years down the road, that design's locked already. They can't make changes. The tooling takes a year to get developed and built. So, I think Apple should have a zoom. It would be great if they would have switched USB-C this year, but this is also a refinement year for Apple.
Because the 12 was the 12 Pro was the first year of the new design. It's called a retro design if you want. The 13, not much different, bigger camera system, but 14, kind of the same thing. Another slightly different chassis on it in size, but basically the same design. And who knows? Maybe next year there'll be a completely new version. I'm
thinking next year will be a new. So it's kind of like where they used to do TikTok with the S design being the refinement and the better, but we all remember the 4 and the 4S look the same.
Yeah.
The 6 and the 6S look the same. The 7 and 7S look the same. Interior, it was almost a whole new structure,
right?
But they look the same. Well, they're now doing it where, like I said, the 12 was a new design. The 13 and 14, unless you look at the details like the color or the sizes of the lenses, you're not going to notice a huge difference. Or if you see the pill and the dynamic island.
Yeah.
Yes, I said it again, versus the notch. But next year, I can't see Apple going that many years without something that they can say new design.
Yeah.
Because I think, and this is something I think we both agree with, is I know everyone compares it to the existing one. Because you have to, if you're doing a review, here's my iPhone 13 Pro Max, here's the 14, and we're going to show you the difference from year to year. As a reviewer, you do that. But as an average person, the average person is not buying a phone every year.
No, not at all.
The average person, like I have a 13 Pro Max, and even if they came out with the super zoom lens, there's one or two things that they would get me to say, okay, I'm biting the bullet. I'm going to have to pay off this phone, which I have another year and a half, 2 years to pay on, admittedly at $13 a month, but so I have to pay that off so I can buy a new one and not get penalized all at once. And it would be something like, oh, by the way, you can use that to now take amazing moon images and amazing star images that are above and beyond anything else. And you have the zoom and it works in almost complete darkness and this and this. It would have to blow my mind.
Yeah.
But a lot of that's limited by physics. So for most people, it's, I have a 13, I'm happy. Or, like in your case, you have a 12, you're doing every other year.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking a lot of people are even going to do every 3 years or every 4 years.
Yeah. I mean, the
11's a perfectly good phone.
Look at Andy Green, who's in the Bloody Legends Facebook group. He's on an iPhone 7 Plus, and he's taking magnificent pictures. So, I mean, nobody has to upgrade every year.
No.
People do it because they want to. I think you and I being on the cycle that we're on is pretty good because, one of us is going to have one of the latest and greatest phones to do with this show, right? To be able to talk about it on this show. Next year, I think we may be in the same situation we are now. I mean, I'm not going to be upgrading, and you may stretch it to 3 years. Yeah, and that's fine.
I'm almost guarantee you I'm probably going to try, unless, like I said, unless something mind-blowing comes out next year.
Yeah.
Or I hit the lottery.
Yeah.
And that is it. It's purely a financial, and B, I don't like wasting things. And if something works good, like my 10's really started to have issues and not work that well. So it was time to update to 13, but you're talking the 10, to the 10s, to the 11, to 12, to 13, 4 years.
Yeah.
It was a 4-year-old phone. So it was time, because of battery issues and other issues where I partially destroyed it. It was time for a new phone.
Yeah.
Ruth had a 7S.
Yeah.
She had a 5-year-old phone. It was more than enough time for her to upgrade.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
But next year, especially, I hate to say, and this is true with anything, if it's a brand new design, I'm a little suspicious because I want them to get all the manufacturing
kinks worked out of it.
Exactly. So
well, you know what though? Between
my
you
thought
and I,
is a 16.
Between you and I, we're gonna know somebody with the new phone next year.
Yeah, exactly.
And we will be able to pick their brain, have them on the show. We'll be able to report on it without any issues. So I'm not too concerned about it. The other thing I wanted to kind of rant a little bit about was the fact that some of these people, and I think I might have touched on it earlier, some of these people that are reviewing on YouTube and things like that don't really have a good grip on how this new camera system works, especially the 48 megapixel sensor. So, I mean, there's a thing about the kind of raw files that they are, or the kind of raw system that it is. There's bare raw, and then there's whatever the raw system is in the iPhone. And I'm not up on it, so I'm not even going to go there. But I do know that some people are saying that it's not true bare raw. Okay, fine. So what? It's a phone. It's not a mirrorless full frame, whatever. It's a phone. And with the 48 megapixel camera, it's built in a way that it does pixel binning. So in most cases, unless you have it set for the 48 megapixel to shoot raw, you can have it set to shoot 12 megapixel or full 48 megapixel. I've got it set to shoot full 48 megapixel when I turn on raw. And if I'm taking pictures of stuff and I don't want a 48 megapixel file, because they're big, they're like upwards of 80 megabytes per file, I'll just shut off the raw and I'll just go with the JPEG, and it's probably going to be just as fine. Well, I mean, it won't be, but I mean, it will be fine to use for whatever I use it for. So the 48 megapixel sensor does binning for anything but the full size raw. When you toggle the 2x, it's basically like taking a crop sensor camera and using it. Like my old Canon DSLRs were 1.6 times cropped or whatever. Like it was what's the best way to explain it? You'd have to go 1.6 times what I had to get a full frame sensor. Something like that. Nikon's, a lot of them were 1.5 times. So it was a smaller sensor than a full frame sensor. And Apple has been able to figure out how to do this by just taking the center 12 megapixels out of that big sensor and using it to take a picture in native pixels with the 2x setting. So, I mean, some people are saying, okay, they look at the back, there's 3 cameras. They look at the front in the Apple camera app, and there's four cameras to select from. You got your 0.5, you got your 1x, 2x, 3x. And I'm talking the pros here, the iPhone 14 Pros. I'm not even going to talk about just the iPhone 14 because I don't have it, and this is more a pro camera thing that these people are going on about. So you got the big sensor that can do basically three things. It can do a full 48 megapixel raw file, and it's not just raw, it's pro raw. Then you could do the 12 megapixel file JPEG, and that's what the pixel binning gives you,
right?
Because it's taking 4 pixels to make one big one, and it's giving you better low light photography and whatever they claim. And then the other thing is you got the 2x, which is 12 megapixel native pixels, no binning, and it gives you a nice sharp image, but it's 12 megapixels. So let's see, where else was I going to go with this? Okay, I'll run through the cameras real quick, and then I'll talk about what I think Apple means by 2 times better low light performance and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So that's the big main sensor. They call it the main camera now. They don't even call it the wide camera. They call it the main camera because it does different functions. And then you've got your 12 megapixel ultra wide. It has its own sensor. It's 12 megapixels. That's it. There's no binning, nothing like that. F2.2 aperture and 13 millimeter focal length, or 35 millimeter equivalent focal length. The 3 times telephoto lens, the 77 millimeter, 2.8 aperture, 12 megapixels, no binning. It's got its own sensor. That's why these things are separate cameras. They're not. People call them lenses all the time. Oh, the 2x lens, the 3x lens, or the ultra wide lens. No, these are cameras. They're not lenses. And the sooner people realize that, the better off they'll be when they're talking about it, and the easier it will be to understand, because they all have their own sensors. There's 3 sensors in this phone, and so that's kind of the long and short of the. I guess I should finish off on the 48 megapixel. When you use 2x, it's using that same sensor, but just the center part of it, and it's giving you a 48 millimeter focal length, as opposed to the 24 millimeter focal length that the 48 megapixel sensor gives you in its entirety. So, I mean, that's why you're going from 1x to 2x, going from 24 to 48 millimeter focal length, and it's 1.78 aperture. So they claim that the low light performance, like Apple never tells you how they get this, what they mean, all that stuff. They just give you numbers, and they rank it compared to I'm only assuming, but the year before. So they're saying, the ultra wide gives you 2 times better low light performance. Well, I think what they're talking about here is the fact that the maximum ISO achievable with the 14 Pro camera system is higher. So thanks to the folks at Halide, they did their technical readout of the 13 Pro versus the 14 Pro cameras. And on the main camera, the 48 megapixel, the maximum ISO on the 13 Pro was 7,616. So that's ISO 7616. On the 14 Pro, that maximum ISO is up to over 12,700. So I think that's what Apple means when they say whatever 2 times or whatever better performance in low light, because you're going to get better performance in low light with a higher ISO. And with the telephoto, it's a jump there as well, but it's not as significant. It goes from 2016 ISO in the 13 Pro to 2688 in the 14 Pro. And I might as well run through the other 2 here while I'm at it. The ultra wide goes from 2304 to 3072. So, that's a jump of over 700 points in ISO. So, I mean, again, higher ISO, you're going to have a little better performance in low light. Plus the fact that the sensors, all the sensors are slightly bigger, I believe, in all the cameras.
The main one is significantly. The main one's significantly bigger.
Oh, yeah. And then the only one that goes backwards is the front-facing camera or the FaceTime camera. It goes from a maximum ISO of 2208 to 1920. But it's a front-facing camera. I mean, that's
still.
But it does have a better aperture. It went from 2.2 to 1.9. So that makes up the difference.
That's a big difference. Yeah.
And it's got, it's got autofocusing and stuff like that now.
Yeah. But, I honestly, I have no problem with people calling out Apple for marketing talk too.
Yeah.
I'll call because people need to call these companies out when they say this is 30% better than what? Unless you specifically tell me what your baseline is. And this is true with anything, Apple, Samsung, whatever. If someone says this is 30% better and they don't give you a baseline, ignore it. Just ignore it. Apple does this too. It's all marketing. They're there. It's marketing. They're there to sell you a product. And I have no problem calling out Apple saying this is marketing BS. And it is marketing BS. Because what do you mean by low light performance? It's us we're guessing. You're guessing it's ISO related. But we don't know. And I hate to say it. If you're just throwing out numbers, I'll ignore them. Now, the other numbers like 48 megapixel and they give you the sensor size and they give you the aperture. Hey, that's something to hang your hat on.
Yeah.
That's something, hey, here's a number. Good. We can do that. And then knowing the difference in aperture and the size and your pixel binning for the main one, primarily your pixel binning, except for the 2X. And like you said, I imagine it only works when it's really bright because they're unbinning them. And that would only work if it's bright. If it's too dark, I imagine each of these subpixels probably don't get enough light and they're going to have to bin them together to give you just a 12 megapixel.
Well, here's how...
Otherwise you would have way too much noise or way too much computational.
Yeah. Here's what happens with the 48 megapixel sensor when it gets into low light situations. At a certain point, night mode kicks in. Then you get the binning and you get a 12 megapixel photo. Okay. And it could still be RAW or Pro RAW, right? But it's going to be 12 megapixel and night mode kicks in. However, I did see a YouTube video from a photographer in Toronto who was out taking pictures with the 14 Pro, and he was using the 48 megapixel sensor, and you can force night mode to shut off. And he was coming up with some really, really nice shots. And I'm going to, if I remember and if I could find these videos, I'll put them all in the show notes so people can check these things out that we're ranting about and all this stuff. But I kind of wanted to just give an explainer as to how these cameras work. Right. Because so many people are guessing, or they get things wrong about how they work, or they wonder how they work and whatnot. And I mean, I could tell you how they work because I use the damn thing, and I'm a geek. I kind of look this stuff up.
Exactly.
Yeah, but so that folks, we just spent the better part of an hour here ranting about a couple of different things that are near and dear to our hearts. With Dave, it's Polarr, and with me, it's the camera system on this phone. And when people try to say things that they're not, it just really bothers me. So I just wanted to, kind of clear the air on, and hopefully make people help people understand how these things work and whatnot. So, so let's change gears now, and let's get into some. Yes, woosah. Dave's going like a yoga pose here. So let's get into some of our recent photos. And you know what? let's go you, then me, then you, then me, and so on. So
Okay.
we'll start with you with your first
Okay.
one.
Okay, so let me know what you consider the first one.
The apples.
Okay.
Or whatever they are. There looks like apples.
They're crab apples.
Crab apples. I thought
they
so,
are
yeah.
crab apples. Yep. So this was on a walk today at lunch, and I was just walking back and saw this tree filled with crab apples. And luckily, I was able to get almost directly underneath where the branch was. I tried to get close. So I was thinking, oh, that would look kind of neat as a macro, but I didn't get that close. But these are not, there's one on the bottom left that looks like an apple.
Yeah,
I like see a that. Red Delicious. It actually has a little bump, but these things are only a couple inches across.
Oh, yeah.
So these are not like full-size apples that you would feel in your hand. They're more like a crab apple size.
Yeah.
And so just getting up, you can see the sun's kind of behind me with the shadow. Mm-hmm. And kind of going off the rant earlier, this was edited in Lightroom Mobile. And I did some adjustments to make it a little bit crisper, bring a little more of the pattern out in the crab apples where it was a little washed out. So I used the dehaze and a little bit of the clarify tool, not too much. And I did a little bit so the sky didn't get like blown out flat blue with the color mixing. But
yeah,
it just looked, just the fact that this, you can see if you look in the distance in the picture, mm-hmm. There's more apples up there.
Oh yeah, it's full of them.
The whole thing's filled. So actually, I'm kind of glad it's now, because this is just on the side of a road in an industrial park. So this isn't like in an orchard or anything. So when all these fall down or whatever birds get hold of them, I don't want to be around when all that mess is there.
Well, they're going to be some drunk ass birds.
Oh yeah.
Once they start fermenting. and the birds start eating them, they'll be flying mm-hmm. crooked and everything. Who knows what else? Yeah. Well, I mean, so this was. I'm just gonna guess here. This was with the ultra wide.
I just let it do its thing, to be honest. So I took it 1x. I didn't go 0.5. So this is just the main one. This is just the main one. Honestly, the ultra wide, and I don't know if this is better in the 14, but the ultra wide does have issues around the edges still with the 13. Yeah. In terms of some, so if I'm going to take a picture of something and I plan on using the ultra wide, I even go back a little bit further, and the lens warping, it only happens on the corner. So I'll crop it to the middle part where you don't notice it as much. So no, this was just the main one.
Okay. Because it's a nice wide shot of a lot of apples. I couldn't even begin to count them. There's so many.
Oh yeah. Yeah. It was kind of crazy how many there were.
Yeah. Alrighty. Okay. So for my first one, I walked to work the other day, one day last week. And, it was a nice enough morning. I could do that. It's about it's a little, I don't know, how long would it be? A little over a mile, I guess. Maybe a mile and a half to get to work. So when I leave the house, I start at 7 a.m. So of course, this time of year, it's dark. And when I was walking to work, there's a excuse me, a walking / cycling path that goes through this industrial block. And that's how I get to the plant. And there was these trees between this path and the plant. And the lights from the plant that I work in were lighting up the edges of these trees. And the sun was just starting to come up. So in the break in the clouds, you can see a little bit of blue sky. So, but I just thought it was really cool the way these trees were lit up. So folks, if you're looking at your phone, you'll see a picture, the one I'm talking about here, and it just kind of reminded me of a scene from Pet Sematary. That one that came out back in the 80s. There was if I recall correctly, there's a scene in that movie where there's a light glowing in behind these trees, and it kind of reminds me of what this picture turned out to be like. And so that's basically it. It was like I don't know, like a 3-second night mode shot. And I just thought it was cool the way the trees, the leaves are still green, and they really light up bright from the bright lights from the plant. And the side I was on, totally dark. So I just thought that was kind of cool.
Crazy. Yeah, I mean, it really, it honestly, it looks. If you didn't tell me those were artificial, I knew, kind of should have known they were artificial, like given their the angle. But it you can almost think that that's a sunrise. Well, without the sky kind of gives it away. But you know, in terms of being sunrise, sunset with the color, because it is a very muted color, so you can tell it's dark. But yeah, I love how the edges are just painted there with like highlights.
Yeah. It I don't want to say frosted tips, but just look like highlighted tips. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So your second one, it was the revised one that you sent.
Okay. Yeah. Let me open that up here. So a little further down on that path, they have these. I don't know what kind of plants these are, but just kind of various brush briar, you know, like a briar plant with a sticky part up top. And the thing is, the sun here was more, these were very, very dark. So when I took the picture, they basically turned out black.
Oh, really?
And I tried to get close enough with this one to do it as a macro. But I think it was just, these things, again, these aren't very, very large. They're decent size, but they're not like massive, huge things. But this one, I just got close enough where, and this was cropped a couple times. So this is going in the Lightroom again, changing the contrast a bit to lower the contrast so you can actually see the detail and not just have it as a silhouette. Yeah. So this is obviously, you can tell, you can see the little jagger and barbs on the individual barbs on the barbs, for lack of a better term. So you look at the individual, you have the long spiky ones, and off of those you can see the little ones that actually work to catch in the skin of something.
Yeah.
That's why they're a pain to pull out and really make it painful. And you can see there's one in the background, and honestly, it's just a matter of I was close enough here that the amount in the back being kind of a bokeh feel, that's 100% natural. So this was not portrait mode. This is just a matter of you're close enough to the main subject where it's in focus and everything else is a little out. And I like the fact there was a little bit of blue sky behind it.
Yeah.
So you had that little bit of blue, you have the green everywhere, and you have this brown kind of in the middle. So it's just like a contrast of colors.
Mm-hmm. And it gives you that impression that fall is approaching, right? Because of the brown and whatever these are. I'm sure they were a lot better looking like 2-3 months ago.
You know what? I think that's the way they look.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah, that's just the way they look, because this isn't a matter of things losing leaves. And actually, I'm going to try to find something here. So while you go on, I just want to check on something though.
Okay.
Because I want to see if
I know Google
Photos does a really good job with saying, "Oh, this is what you have." Okay. And let me tell you what it is. So I'm going to okay. Oh, okay, here we go. They're calling it a wild teasel. Or thickle or a thistle. Like a thistle, thistle dry head. So, just a common, they call it a teasel, or it's kind of like a thistle, but it's called a teasel. Teasel.
Oh, okay.
So,
interesting. I mean, I've seen these around here too. I've never known what they are.
Yeah.
And okay, so just you said this was it the ultra wide or no?
That I think I tried doing, and then let me check here if I can. The thing is, I did some editing, so I don't know if it'll. Yeah, that's the ultra wide
Oh, okay.
because that went into macro mode pretty much.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
So yeah, that was the ultra wide.
Alrighty. Cool. My second one was, I mean, I wish it's a picture of these trees, and the fall colors are really, really starting to pop on these particular trees. And actually, the okay, so there's two trees in the frame, but the leaves are not from these trunks, like the trees that belong to these trunks. They are like spruce trees or something by the looks of it. And there's a maple tree in behind that's the branches are poking out and getting in clear view here. And there's a fence there, but on the other side of the fence, there's actually a river. You can see some white in behind there. That's the river running. And but I just really like the way these colors were so vibrant, and it was the only tree in the area that was showing up like that. Everything else was still green. So I don't know why these leaves are so orange and red looking. And as you can see, there's still some green leaves, but the vibrancy of these leaves just caught my eye, and I just had to get a picture of them. And I think, of course, as the days go on here up here in Canada, I think we're going to get the colors probably like just a little bit sooner than you would, Dave, just because we're like, probably
Just
what,
that
6-7 hours north of you guys.
Right.
And this is my favorite time of year to take pictures of trees because of the colors and everything else. So I'm hoping that our Thanksgiving weekend is basically 2 weeks. So Thanksgiving for us is 2 weeks from today. So that weekend, that weekend, I'm going to be off work, and I'm going to hopefully get scads and scads of pictures of trees. It's just my favorite time of year to shoot. So it just made me so happy to be able to get a shot like this early in the season. They're not even hardly changing over yet.
Yeah, we got a while before stuff start changing over, and I love the details on the leaves where you can actually see the veining in the especially the orange ones. You can see the yellow veining on it.
And this was the 3X, like the telephoto camera.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I should have taken one in full res 48 megapixel, but I didn't do one. So I'm saving that for a better one. Hopefully. Yeah. So your next one looks nice and peaceful.
Yes. This was taken at dusk on a night run. And this is a golf course not too far away from our house.
Oh, okay.
And I just love the coloration of the sky, how it goes from like a light pink to a light blue.
Yeah, that's cool.
To a gradient there. Mm-hmm. So this is just one of those weird days where there were no clouds. And like I said, it was getting later in the day. So, this is kind of looking towards the west, and just probably a good 20 minutes at most before sunset.
Okay,
so it just, I just love the gradation of the sky and the way the horizon had an arc to it. So it's not a flat horizon. It has almost like a bowl to it. Yeah. And of course, being on the golf course, you can see it's cleared out there. You can see the clubhouse in the middle. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of like the framing of the one tree on the side there. And just the way the rest of it kind of the flow of the sky. Yeah.
Yeah. It just looks so nice and peaceful. Like there's nobody on the golf course. Now, would it have been darker than what the picture is showing? Or is this pretty accurate?
This is pretty accurate. Accurate. Yeah. This isn't one of those times where you, all of a sudden it's much darker. So
Yeah.
but it was close-ish to sunset. See here, this was 7 p.m. local time.
Okay.
7 p.m. local time on September 15th. So it was maybe an hour till sunset, but probably a little bit less.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I would say this is pretty close. I did not feel like I needed to run home before it got too dark and enough cars on the road.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and you know what? You can actually see some of the trees on the right-hand side starting to turn.
Yeah, just starting a little bit there.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's interesting, how some of the trees go much sooner than others. And, we have some trees here that are completely yellow. I don't know what kind of trees they are. I'm not a tree expert, but yet we have a lot of like crimson maple trees that are not even thinking about turning yet. So the trees on the right of the frame in this shot, they look like they could be maple, and who knows, maybe they're the same as the ones in my shot, like the same variant or whatever.
It could be, yeah.
But it's just a really nice, peaceful scene, and I really like golf course pictures. I'd love to get out on a golf course this year and take some pictures like this too, because you see these golf course pictures in like travel magazines and stuff like that. And that's just so cool. And that's just what this reminds me of. So yeah, it's a great capture.
Oh, thanks, man.
Okay, so my last one. This is a 48 megapixel Pro RAW file that I edited in Darkroom, and I'd like to print this, but I don't think it's that print worthy, really. But basically, it's a sunset. My wife and I were out with the dog out for a drive, and I thought, you know what, I'm going to go and check this spot out because I've got sunsets here before, and the sun was setting. The colors were not great, but we pulled into this place right where this river is, and I thought, that doesn't look too bad. So I got out and took a few pictures of it, and this was, obviously with the main camera, 24 millimeter focal length, and but I really kind of jazzed up some of the color in the sky. I did this one in Darkroom, and I don't know what it is, but Darkroom seems to be the one that I go to a little more with these 48 megapixel files. I like I say, I don't know what it is, but it just seems to render them a little better for my liking. And what I like about it is the reflection in the water. So sorry for people who don't have their phone handy and they can see this picture. It's basically, there's a river in the foreground, and there's a line of trees that are completely silhouetted, and then there's a sky in the background with clouds and the sun setting. But these the river where the reflections are, here's a really, really good editing tip that I saw on YouTube the other night from Adam Gibbs. And when he does his highlights to bring the highlights out more, he doesn't move the highlight slider in Lightroom, and it works the same in just about any editing app. He moves the one called whites, and it just does something. It just does something to boost the brightness of the lighter colors in the scene. And that's what I did in the whole thing. And then in Darkroom, there's a mask that selects the foreground. And I don't know if this is like Darkroom is a subscription thing now too. So I don't know how it all works, but I paid into it before, and there's only a few small things that I don't get because I don't have the subscription, but I do have this masking feature where it just selects the foreground, and then I boosted the whites again a little more to get to really bring out that reflection, because it was a lot more subdued before I did that, and I wanted to make it really pop. And so that's what you're seeing here is the final result. And of course, then I just saturated the blues a little bit in the sky and whatnot. And Yeah, other than that, that was it. But I thought it was really cool because, I mean, folks aren't going to be able to see it on their phones. But if they go to my website, mcmillan.photos, there will be I think it's on there, a full res. I'm going to put a link in the show notes to wherever I put this post about this picture, and you can see it full screen. Maybe it's in glass. If you go to glass and look up my name, Greg, and find this picture, you can look at it full screen on your computer, and you'll be able to see all the detail mostly in the branches along the horizon. It's just so crisp and clear, and you can actually see a couple of birds flying around in the air too. But yeah, it's man, that 48 megapixel sensor is something else. It's don't listen to the naysayers on YouTube, because I'm gonna prove those guys wrong. but yeah, that was just a nice sunset shot that I got. I wish there was more vibrant colors in the sky, but it is what it is.
So, no, I mean, I think it turned out good. And like I said, GJ actually didn't want overly vibrant. I think when I showed Ruth this, what got her attention was the reflection and the river itself, not necessarily the sky.
Oh yeah. Okay, that's cool.
Because there's tons of additional. It isn't just a smooth river. You have the ripples.
Well, yeah, and there's a lot of I think it's like plant life.
Yeah.
Kind of just coming to the surface in the water, and it looks real blotchy all over the place, but with the reflection of the clouds and that in the smooth part of the water. So yeah, it's kind of different looking, but but I mean, it sure caught my eye when I took the shot. All right. Well, I think we're going to call it a night here, Dave.
Sounds good.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm gonna try to dig up as many links as I can to some of the crap we've been ranting about. And now, do you know, Dave, if there's any place online that talks about the Polarr subscription model?
Not that I think of.
Okay. I'll see if I could dig something up. I don't know if they've got a blog or what, but I'll check their website out, and if I could find something to do with the subscription model, I'll put it in the show notes. Otherwise, I'll put links to the YouTube stuff that I was talking about earlier, the stuff that pissed me off, and just our usual links and everything else on top of that. So, speaking of that, tell everybody where they could find you.
Sure, you can find me on Instagram and Twitter as Prof Pod. I believe also in Vero as Prof Pod or David Podner Jr. And you can find me on TikTok as Prof Pod PGH.
Alrighty. You can find me on Twitter at McMillan_photo, on Glass, just with my name Greg, and on Vero, my name McMillan. Funny enough there, but I am still on Instagram at McMillan Photo. I do post the odd time, but not nearly as much. But my website is mcmillan.photos, and you can find all the show notes and everything else on Anchor or at our website, iPhoneography.ca. So I guess that's it for this week. We will we'll continue with updates on the iPhone 14 and Pro and whatnot. Oh, you know what? I wanted to mention this real quick, Dave, before I forget. Okay. Shane Mostyn got his iPhone 14 Pro Max, and he went out and did an astro shot of the Milky Way, and it turned out like crap.
Yeah.
So he put a YouTube video out saying saying just that, and man, that had me worried. But iOS updated to 16.0.2 and it fixed it. So he's able to get the shot that he was looking to get. Now, just a little teaser or spoiler maybe, in the video where he shows that it's fixed, it's not as easy to take that shot with the 14 Pro Max as it was with the 13 Pro Max, but you can still get it. So I'll put a link to that video in the show notes, but both videos actually, the one where it turned out like crap, and then the one where it's fixed.
Yeah.
And check those out.
That is a little concerning, to be honest. The fact that it's one thing to say it's hard to tell a difference if they're both good, but to say to get what you had last year, you have to do all this extra work.
Yeah.
That's a little concerning.
He's gonna test it some more. Yeah. But there was one little trick he had to do to get it to work, to look as good as the 13 Pro. And I won't say what it was. I'll let you watch the video, folks. It's not that long. It's probably less than 10 minutes. Oh, yeah. But it's a good watch. And if you're thinking of doing astrophotography with a 14 Pro Max or 14 Pro, check them out and don't be discouraged when you see the first one, when he, his thumbnail shows a thumbs down. But it is possible. It's just a little, so far he's discovered that it's a certain way you got to do it. So, all right, I guess that's it.
Yep.
Okay. Well, thanks, Dave. Thanks for sharing a rant and all that. And we'll try to make the next episode a little more pleasant, hopefully.
Oh, yeah. Hopefully we'll have good reason to also.
Yeah, for sure. Alrighty. We will see you all on the next one.
Have a great one, everyone.